You ever have one of those days where you just know right from the first second that the universe has lost its mind and is using your front yard as the stage? Because I swear I can still hear the echo of her voice cracking through the salt air, setting every seagull on the shoreline flying as she pounded both fists on my locked steel gate and shrieked that I had single-handedly ruined her entire weekend for 200 people. Picture it behind her, this rolling ocean of designer sunglasses, blinking phone screens, some folks angry, others laughing hell, some just looked confused. Somewhere in all that chaos, a guy coated in glitter was trying to squeeze a champagne bottle through the bars, like that had somehow convinced me to swing the gate wide and surrender my private beach to a mob that smelled like sunscreen entitlement and desperation. Funny thing is, just an hour earlier, my world was nothing but a mug of black coffee and the hush of waves, quiet, perfect golden sun warming the porch boards under my bare feet. The scent of salt and pine from the dunes just kind of wrapped around me, reminding me exactly why I'd busted my tail to buy this isolated beach cabin in the first place. Solitude for me isn't just a preference, it's survival. I paid for every inch of this land, and that iron gate was installed after too many curious tourists decided private meant optional. I'd barely finished my second cup when I heard this low rumble, engines at first distant like thunder out to sea, then closer, louder, until suddenly my quiet lane became a parade ground. Luxury SUVs, party buses, convertibles, they spilled onto the gravel road like the ocean had opened its jaws and spat out pure chaos. At first I figured maybe there'd been an accident or a GPS screw-up, but when the first group stepped out laughing, hauling coolers, neon floats, and DJ speakers, then another group and another, my calm unraveled like a thread. Pretty soon the roadside looked like a music festival no one had bothered to mention to me. Then she appeared, tall, platinum blonde sunglasses so big she could block out reality itself, strutting toward my gate like she owned the sand beneath my feet. Her voice was sharp, already irritated, and she demanded I unlock the gate right away because my guests are arriving. I blinked at her, genuinely thinking this had to be some kind of joke. But her face, she was dead serious. It was carved with pure fury and disbelief that anyone, let alone someone like me, could say no. I kept my voice even, told her this was private property and she'd need to move along. The air shifted instantly like a fuse lit. She laughed loud, turned toward the crowd, and announced that I was refusing to allow her reserved beachfront party to proceed. Suddenly, the crowd got louder. Cameras rose like they were summoned by instinct. I asked her for proof, for anything, just one document that said she belonged there. She jabbed a manicured finger out to sea, claimed she'd reserved the whole shoreline for a weekend cocktail celebration sponsored by multiple brands, and that my gate was an unlawful obstruction that had cost me more than I could afford. She said it like reality would bend to her voice. My stomach twisted. I tried to explain property lines are clear, there's no permit, this road is private. She scoffed like I'd offended her dignity, then stepped closer, gripping the bars like she was on Broadway, and yelled to the world that I was ruining her long-planned dream event. Phones pointed at my face suddenly. I was the villain in some live-streamed play. All at once, the peaceful hush of the shore disappeared, replaced by arguing, pleading, negotiating. Some folks laughed, others typed furiously into their screens. I just stood there, realizing whatever I did would live online forever. Then you had the side acts. One guest tried to rattle the bars, chanting, "Open the gate." Another tried to squeeze through the hinges until my security alarm shrieked and silenced him fast. Karen, that's what my brain labeled her, laughed it off as theatrics and accused me of psychological warfare for attention. I told her again this wasn't an event venue, it was my home. She froze like home meant nothing in her world of reservations and influencer checklists. Then she leaned in, eyes sharp as broken glass, and threatened that if I didn't open up, she'd expose me to the entire internet as a miserable, bitter recluse who hates joy. Somewhere in all that, a DJ started setting up. Because I guess if you act like you own the place, eventually the world might believe you. The idea of 200 strangers dancing 15 feet from my porch on land, I'd spent years saving for it, felt like an invasion of something more personal than just space. But she just kept rambling contracts, sponsorships, guest lists. I stood there barefoot, clutching my cold mug, staring into this wild, glamorous storm, unable to believe this was real life. I told her again to leave or I'd call the authorities. She gasped, then ranted for the crowd about months of planning how I was destroying her weekend, her reputation, her 200 paying attendees. She climbed onto a decorative planter camera ready, screaming she'd never been treated so disrespectfully. The crowd pressed closer. Some poor guy behind her tried to pour sparkling water into a cooler and just dumped ice everywhere like confetti from a failed parade. I stood my ground listening to the sea. No amount of shouting, no number of followers could rewrite the law. But as her live stream numbers spiked, her expression twisted outrage turned theatrical. She realized this wasn't just a lost event, it was content. She smiled at my gate like it was a fresh stage. She started narrating the whole thing for her followers, exclusive influencer weekend sabotaged by a heartless gatekeeper. Some folks booed, some laughed. Most just looked like they'd stepped into a reality show they never signed up for. She introduced herself with a flourish, name-dropping brands, waving at the party buses, the coolers, the floats. All evidence, she insisted, of a professional event. I realized right then she needed this place not because she owned it, but because her image depended on it. I tried logic, reminded her her contracts didn't match my deeds, my permits. She rummaged through a glittery bag, flashed some vague phone screenshot, no permits, no location. When I pointed that out, she spun around and accused me of misinterpreting her proof just to embarrass her. Now her guests were getting restless. Someone muttered about how much they'd paid. Karen tried a new angle, bribes, offered me VIP wristbands, unlimited cocktails, even branded merch, as if that'd buy my silence. When I declined, her shock morphed into outrage. She accused me of jealousy, of sabotaging her beautiful people. I almost laughed, but mostly I was just stunned. She started pacing, ranting about promises to followers, countdowns, advertising this takeover. The crowd started to look uncomfortable, but nobody left. She tried emotional appeals, how hard she'd worked, how stressed she'd been. But her eyes held nothing but annoyance at being blocked. Then she mocked me, pointed at my plain clothes, my calm posture, joked to her stream that I just didn't get fun in modern sharing. I shot back that community sharing doesn't mean trespassing. And she rolled her eyes, called me a primitive, rule-obsessed hermit. Her assistant, clipboard shaking, tried to whisper to her, but Karen waved her off and doubled down on threats. She started getting desperate, insisting she'd been promised this space by some online agent, and instead of checking her facts, she decided to just outshout reality. She told the crowd if I wouldn't cooperate, they'd just wait until I broke down because nobody can delay happiness forever. A few cheered, others got nervous, side-eyeing their phones and whispering about legality. The entertainment value started curdling into something meaner. Karen kept narrating, sunglasses adjusted, describing every outrage to her viewers. Then she gripped the gate and rattled it hard, shouting, "No single man should stand between 200 people and their right to a good time." The metallic rattle echoed out, sending birds scattering. I told her calmly but firmly to stop. She threw her hands up, screaming she was being oppressed by ego-fueled authority. The crowd swelled restless, some now looking more like they wanted to test the bars than party. And that's when I realized logic alone wasn't going to cut it. So I stepped back, grabbed my property documents, and digital confirmations came out and started showing her and everyone the actual legal lines, the county records, the deeds. Karen scoffed, called it outrageous, but I asked for her reservation number. For a moment she hesitated, then fished through her phone, finally showing me a screenshot that looked more like a forwarded text than any contract. So I pointed out every hole, no company header, no map, no address. She accused me of falsifying records. The crowd leaned in like a live episode of Judge Judy. I double-checked the event zone. Turns out her booking was for a commercial strip 2 miles south, known for loud parties. When I told her she'd brought everyone to the wrong place, she went silent, mouth open. For a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. But instead of apologizing, she twisted it, blamed the agency, accused me of sabotage by geography. She called her booking rep, put them on speaker, and everyone leaned in waiting. Sure enough, the rep confirmed wrong beach. Instead of accepting it, Karen just doubled down. Any reasonable person would let the party happen anyway. The crowd gasped, some in disbelief, some in awe. A few guests finally started questioning her. Why didn't you check the address? Others murmured about the VIP tickets they'd bought. Karen dismissed them as negative. Tension thickened. She tried to sell kindness as an excuse for trespassing. I stood my ground. Kindness doesn't mean forced compliance. She accused me again of targeting her because of her wealth, her image. People started pulling out phones, checking their own maps, the truth spreading like cracks in glass. Karen's grip only tightened. She vowed vengeance, threatened to expose everyone. The crowd split, some apologetic, some still hyped for confrontation. Then she lost it, pacing, shouting that nobody would leave, that this was happening with or without the owner's permission. Someone in the crowd, a little drunk, staggered forward and tried to climb the gate. My security alarm screamed a sound so sharp it silenced everything. Karen snapped, demanding he climb over as if rebellion was now the entertainment. The line between spectacle and crime blurred. I warned them, cross, and it's trespassing, police are on the way. Karen laughed, said cops were slow out here. That emboldened folks. They rattled the gate, shouting about their right to party, blaming me for ruining everything. Someone even yelled, let's just move the gate. The tension in the air was electric. Nobody quite sure if this was still a party or a riot. Then the distant wail of sirens drifted over the dunes. Some folks stepped back, others stood their ground, fueled by Karen's rants about public spirit. She declared the police would side with her. She had documents, witnesses, influence. But I knew the law doesn't bend to tantrums. The officers rolled up, surveyed the mess, listened to Karen's wild claims. I handed over everything, deeds, permits, audio of her call with the agency. They took it all in, then asked her, why didn't you just go to the right place? She fumed that no luxury event should be forced to downgrade. The officers explained private property beats disappointment. Any forced entry is trespassing. That's when Karen, in true drama queen fashion, collapsed to the sand, in tears, sobbing about hostility. Some guests rolled their eyes, others edged away. The officers asked around folks, admitted Karen encouraged them to test the gate. Her mask flickered. You could see the panic. The crowd thinned. Some apologized, embarrassed. They'd believed her. Karen, however, dug in deeper, blaming everyone but herself, insisting she was the real victim and that her emotional trauma should be taken seriously. With the threat of fines and actual legal trouble hanging in the air, most folks started packing up. But Karen stayed rooted, glaring at me, insisting she'd take this to court. Her voice, once thunderous, now sounded more like a weak echo as the shoreline finally went quiet. But that night, just when I thought it was over, my power cut out. No storm. Just silence and darkness. I found the utility box wide open, wires yanked. Security camera caught a blurry figure. Looked an awful lot like the clipboard guy from earlier. Called the cops, filed the report, watched the dawn crawl in with the weight of knowing this was now more than a misunderstanding. It was retaliation. Sure enough, a couple days later, a legal complaint arrived, Karen claiming emotional damage, seeking compensation for defamation and obstruction. It was absurd but not surprising. My lawyer barely blinked, forwarded every record, camera, file, online post, and it turned out Karen had a pattern of pulling this stunt up and down the coast. Then the tables finally turned. She got served with a court summons, trespassing, tampering, reckless endangerment. That was the moment the spectacle ended and the real accountability began. Court day came, a parade of emotion and denial from Karen, but every clip, every document, every contradiction piled up. The judge listened, unimpressed by theatrics. My attorney rolled out the evidence, property lines, security footage. Karen directing people to climb the gate, her assistant at the utility box. It was all right there. The judge's ruling was clear. Karen trespassed, broke the law, and escalated things into danger. She got fines, a ban, a warning. Her voice, always so loud, finally wavered as reality settled in. Afterwards, there was no victory dance, just a quiet, grounded relief. My cabin was still standing, the gate still closed. The wind off the ocean felt different, calmer, maybe a little wiser. Karen faded from the headlines, her apology as hollow as her earlier promises, her followers scattering. My story, though, it stopped being about her. Neighbors stopped by, thanked me for standing up, and I realized sometimes the line you hold isn't just about property, it's about principle. So here's my question for you. What would you have done? Open the gate and let chaos in? Or stand your ground even when the mob is loud and the cameras are rolling? Let me know what you think. Where do you draw the line between kindness and standing up for what's right? Share your thoughts, your stories, your own lines in the sand. Because when it comes down to it, justice isn't just about law. It's about having the guts to hold your ground even when the world's trying to shout you down.